This is a 1951 Farmall Super C. We split it today. We've got it supported by an overhead gantry and a come-along. We're able to use two studs on the rear of the engine and some chain, and then get a strap up around the front, and that is holding this whole front half securely. Let me borrow this handy stand that the guys use when they split tractors down at the farm, and that's got the entire rear half supported. We had to disconnect some wiring, disconnect some linkages like choke and throttle linkage. We had to remove the hydraulic hard line that goes from here, the hydraulic reservoir with the touch control system, from the hydraulic pump up here below the distributor. These are those hard lines there. You can see the hard lines. And the whole purpose of doing this split is because we need to do some maintenance to the ring gear. The ring gear goes around the perimeter of the flywheel. The flywheel bolts up here to the rear of the crankshaft. And inside the bell housing here, this is the starter. So when the starter is engaged, this small sprocket slides up and engages with the ring gear, turns the flywheel, and turns over the engine. The problem we're having right now is that there's a couple spots around the perimeter of the ring gear where the teeth are very worn, and sometimes it'll just grind. It will not turn the engine over. So here's the ring gear here, and you can see the wear, how worn those are. So what we should be able to do is heat this up with a torch, pull the ring gear off. It's just this wide going around the whole perimeter. Flip it over, heat it up again, and tap it back down on the flywheel. This rear side has never been used. And there's no reason, according to what I've read, that you can't just flip it over so that this starter is now engaging with this side of the teeth. So we're gonna take a shot at that tomorrow. The clutch pack bolts up inside the flywheel, so there's the clutch. So this friction material mates up against this face and that face inside the flywheel. Still lots of friction material there, not even close to being down to the rivets, so that'll be fine to reuse. One of the things you have to be mindful of when you're reinstalling a clutch is proper alignment. You can see those female splines there. Those female splines obviously ride on the male splines there when everything is back together, and that's a shaft that gets pushed in and out by the throwout bearing. The throwout bearing pivots back and forth from the clutch pedal, and that engages the clutch to make contact with those surfaces. The friction turns everything, and you have power going back to your transmission. The clutch gets bolted up into the flywheel here, and when you go to slide the two halves back together, having correct alignment is very important. So they sell clutch alignment tools. We got lucky and found some pieces of tubing the right size and just made our own. So basically all you're trying to do is mimic the shape of that thing. So this slips in there, the smaller tube, and that goes there. And then when everything gets bolted back together, this is the right size to go over there, like that. And all that's doing is keeping the clutch pack centered, concentric with the engine. So when the two halves come together, everything lines up and is centered so that it's not like shaking around. You want it to be parallel. You want it to be on the same center axis. And yeah, hopefully we'll get the ring gear flipped tomorrow, and then reassembly hopefully shouldn't be a a big deal. It took us only 3-4 hours to get this apart, and a lot of that was just kind of messing around and having to struggle to get a few things apart, and putting it back together should be even easier. So that's the 51 Super C. Split the bell housing. So we just heated up the ring gear, and I was going around with the torch, and Grandpa was pounding on it with a punch and hammer, and eventually it came loose and it popped right off. So we're gonna let it all cool down, and then we'll be able to heat up just the ring gear so that it expands, and then hit it back onto this little shoulder here, flipped over, so that the unused teeth can now be used. Tractor's back in one piece. I forgot to get some video of the flywheel reinstalled, but anyway, everything's back together. Went together with no issues, and the problem appears to be fixed. No more grinding during starting.